for pronouncing my name correctly. The days following World War II were dark and unfriendly to a Japanese-American woman named Hanako. Hanako was about 20 years old, 24 years old, young 20s. She had been called home and asked by her mother to help reopen the family household. And by helping, she meant, can you find a job, any job? Didn't matter what it was. You see, Hanako had been born into citizenship, but yet America had not been friendly to Hanako or her family. Hanako's family was subject to terrible discrimination. Her father was taken away by the FBI on Pearl Harbor Day, along with other Japanese American community leaders, leaving the Japanese community almost devoid of all leadership. The women and the children were left for several months until they were boarded onto buses and asked to take only what they could carry and to live in a horse stall at the Puyallup State Fairgrounds. There they lived for several months with no privacy. Each horse stall had a different family, until they were finally boarded onto trains and brought God knows where. But they were dropped off in Minidoka, Idaho, which is a little town near Twin Falls, Idaho. There it was cold in the winter and hot in the summer, dusty all the rest of the time. But this story isn't about that. This story begins really 4 years later, upon Hanako's return to her household, finding her house dark and cold, kind of lonely, and her former friends all shunning her. Even her Chinese friends wore little buttons that declared, "I'm Chinese, not Japanese," for fear that they would be mistaken for someone who was of the enemy. No one in those days wanted to hire anyone of Japanese descent, and no one wanted to associate with them either. Eventually, though, Hanako found a job as a typist at a local hospital. There she went, and because no one talked to her, she ate her lunch all by herself, sitting at her desk. She did this for 2 weeks straight. She would walk to the hospital, eat her lunch by herself, walk home by herself, and she did this every day. She had never felt quite so isolated or alone. But then one day, a tall blonde woman strode purposefully up to her and said, "Hi, I'm Tony. Won't you come sit with us and meet my friends at our table?" And my mother, who was Hanako, she was floored. Tony was the tallest, most beautiful, and most popular girl at the hospital. She had a broad smile, bright sparkling eyes, golden hair. And, my mother went with her, and the rest, as they say, is history. The two hit it off. My mother met the rest of her friends, and they all welcomed her into their fold of friends. As more of Hanako's friends rejoined the Seattle and came back, some of them made contact with my mother, and they were also introduced to this ever-expanding group of new friends. Hanako's mother invited them all to come have sukiyaki dinner at the household one day, and there they learned how to use chopsticks for the first time. The two groups started doing all kinds of activities together, going clam digging on the coast, having picnics together, going hiking, all kinds of activities. And you know what happened? These two groups of disparate people learned that they really weren't so different after all. The two women grew up the rest of the way. They met husbands. They started families about the same time. And every 4th of July, the Wood family and the Yamaguchi family would get together to celebrate America's independence. A fitting holiday for these two, wouldn't you say? What made that kind but yet simple act so significant in my mind is the degree of risk to which Toni had subjected herself on that day. She risked being ostracized by her friends and losing her social standing because she not only talked to someone who looked like the enemy, but befriended someone. But it's interesting how such a small but seemingly insignificant act, yet being so meaningful. It's funny how such a simple act like that can change a person's life. We Yamaguchi and Wood kids grew up together. We played, not only lit firecrackers together, but we played tennis together. We even had childhood crushes on each other. My sister Linda and Kathy Wood even became roommates at the university, and they still remain fast friends to this day. Recent events have shown me that history appears to be repeating itself. Any group that can be identified by their different actions, strange customs, even talking in a strange tongue, can be ostracized, subject and vulnerable to being exported, exploited, and even denied things like government, healthcare, and subjected to violence. What is it about our own human nature that causes us to fear and distrust those whom we do not understand? My mother's life was changed in an instant by a warm smile and an invitation. Won't you do the same if given that opportunity? Thank you.